I was working with a client today and she had a specific question about preparing the body, the pelvis and the back specifically for lunges. These exercises should be safe for people with low bone density. As with any exercise program, you want to use your best judgment. So if something doesn't feel right to you, you should stop, modify. You can always reach out to me with questions or concerns, but you're the best judge of your body. If it doesn't feel right, you should just take a pause and get a consultation from either your physician, your physical therapist, your chiropractor, or a trainer who knows your body in person. So with that, let's get started. We started off our session with the foam roller and the tennis ball. So I'm going to grab those things now. So although if you have tight quads, it's the incentive to roll out and do some self-massage and release work is very low. So just know that it does get better over time. Rolling out will help you. So I'm just going to place my ball there off the floor. And I like to start off with rolling the legs. I'm no expert by any means, but I do know what helps me just get going, get rolling, if you will. So I always start behind the legs and work my way up, because this is easy. Just sit on the floor and wiggle your legs around. Swinging, I actually rotate my legs, and I internally rotate my legs, and I work my way up. And you can weight bear or not. You're going to get much more out of weight bearing in the arms because it'll put more pressure onto the roller. I'm going to work my way up the backs of the legs, and then also kind of acclimates the body to the pressure of the roller in a more gentle way, so it's not such a shock to the system. So using the legs and the arms, using a little bit of abdominal control to help support the body. And then getting onto the thighs, onto forearms. This requires much more abdominal control. So keeping the abdominal wall lifting up, the bottom ribs lifting up slightly. And I'm going rather quickly, and that is intentional, not just for the video. It kind of keeps the pressure on out of one area. And so it's not so difficult for the body. Then going on to the outside of one thigh. Instead of being on the IT band, I'm more on the TFL towards the top and then down towards the knee. And then I'll roll over onto the TFL. I'll go a little bit, on the IT band, and I'll go a little bit slower. Going slow to register where the specific tight spots are, continuing to breathe, and trying to send as much relaxation through the body, the rest of the body as possible. And changing legs, rolling across the front. You can even yourself out, and then do the other side. TFL. So I'm using the top leg with the foot on the floor to help push and pull as I push and pull with my arms. You might have to readjust the roller to get all the way down to the knee, depending on your space and your proportions. Then we set the roller aside and we switch to the tennis ball. So the tennis ball, we did the same quad release work, but starting from the top center where the hip flexor tendons cross the hip. We don't go inside of that. That's for safety because there's a lot of tissue here and an artery that could become blocked or impinged, and it can be very painful. So we want to stay out of this area and stay mostly into the center of the thigh and the outside, the lateral side of the thigh. So We'll go all the way from the hip crease, or just below. Call this the GI Jill. So you have to be mindful of your back when doing this. Some people without back pain can be pushed up on their elbows, but it's just better to do a little GI Jill crawl, is what I call it. And then you're going to pull yourself forward and push with your externally rotated bent leg, and then you're just going to rest a little bit on the ball. And my client had asked me, should I roll on the muscle or in between the muscles? And that's up to you. Again, I'm not an expert on this stuff. You can reach out to some experts, but I'm just going intuitively into what feels right for my body, which is kind of in the center of the muscle, to get things to relax in the muscle itself. And I'm not going to stay here too long. And then I'm just going to do the other side. You could do a couple angles. You could do down more the middle and then more to the outside. I'm just staying mostly in the middle. So again, stay in the center of the thigh. Breathing, relaxing into the pressure, maintaining enough abdominal control to help support your back if you have low back pain, particularly when lying on your stomach. Oh boy. Again, the incentive to do this is pretty low because it doesn't feel good at the time, but it does feel good after the fact. Okay. Then we went to the glutes to release the glute tissue. So for this exercise, for this release work, I started close to the sacrum on the soft tissue, about 9 o'clock if you think of it that way. And going clockwise, I like to work myself around the inner crest of the pelvis, to the outside, till you get to 3 o'clock, down until you get to 6 o'clock, staying above the sit bone, the ischial tuberosity there. So you're still in the glute tissue rather than on the hamstrings, and then coming back in towards the tailbone. But again, staying off of the bony landmarks and staying in the soft tissue, and then you can kind of end by moving to the center of the clock into the main bulk of the tissue there. And then you would do the opposite on the other side. That's not a hard and fast rule, that's just how I do it to help organize my mind, to help me know where to start and where to finish. So you'll get more out of it by lengthening that leg if it's available to you, and then just move yourself over the ball and relax into it a little bit. You can also go counterclockwise. The world is your oyster. You can do any of that. And you're breathing, and you're trying to find relaxation. When I go to the 3 o'clock side, I'm shifting my weight slightly, and you can push with the foot of the bent leg, the leg that you're not massaging, to rock yourself gently over the ball. Again, intuitive. I'm approaching this more like an art than a science, but there are plenty of wonderful experts out there who have turned this into rolling and release work into a science, so I highly recommend you look them up. And then the center of the tissue, you might not want to roll, you might just want to release there. And then change sides. Extending the leg. You can also keep the leg bent if that feels comfortable for you. You have more control to release yourself out of the pressure. This enables you to push and rock a little bit easier. This would be super intense on a lacrosse ball. I would not recommend it, unless of course this is your preference. You want to be able to keep the rest of the body relaxed and not feel the whole system tighten up. So, and then getting the center of the tissue, glute tissue. Noticing how you feel one side to the other. There's a different tight spot. And then we're done with the ball. Now, I went ahead and had my client lay down, and because she has low bone density, we always lie on our side, use our arms and legs to lay down, and then roll onto the back. From here, we did a piriformis stretch or external rotator stretch for the hip. So crossing the right ankle over the left thigh, bring the left thigh towards your chest, hugging behind the left knee so as not to compress the left knee. And for my client, because her back was in pain, I had a small towel rolled up to fill in the gap in her low back so her back could relax. If you find it's very difficult to keep your glutes or your tailbone and sacrum anchoring down into the mat, a towel might be a helpful proprioceptive tool for you to use. And then change sides. Focusing on keeping the trunk muscles and the pelvis in the same organization that you were when you were just lying on your back, but now you've crossed your leg. Keeping the shoulders wide and open, the rib cage heavy into the floor. And then release. From here, I had her move her mat out of the way so that she could slide her feet on her hardwood floor. If you have carpet, it might be easy. So you want to be able to slide your feet. So first we did a breathing exercise, having our fingers gently interwoven and laying the hands on top of the soft tissue in the abdominal wall, so below the ribs and above the hip bones. You'll breathe in and focus on breathing into the sides and the back of the rib cage, breathing down and out through the floor. And exhaling, feeling the abdominal wall pulling your fingers together so they interweave more, and you're doing that three-dimensionally, so not just from the front caving in, but the whole system is condensing itself. Breathing into the sides and the backs and the ribs, releasing the connecting feeling in the torso, and exhaling, bringing the fingertips towards beyond each other, interlacing. Breathing in. As you exhale, you're also thinking about co-contracting the pelvic floor muscles to elongate up. The transverse abdominis is doing this work of cinching in. The diaphragm is connected with the breathing, and the multifidi are helping you maintain the position of your spine without engaging the more superficial spinal muscles. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. Two more times. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. So this is a way to wake up the deep core connection, but your deep abdominal connection, your pelvic floor. It's a great exercise to do when you're postpartum, after having a baby, or if you have diastasis recti for any other reason, which happens to men and women. So that's a great exercise to do to really refocus, because so often they've been told to breathe into their bellies, and so they expand the abdominal wall up and then soften it back down, but they're missing that transverse connection. So you will breathe in As you breathe out, you'll find that transverse abdominis connection. Flex your right ankle and slide the leg, sliding along the mat until the leg is fully extended, keeping the pelvis really still and keeping the hip bones pulling up towards the ribs to keep from overextending in the back. And if you're hyperextended, you'll only extend the leg so that the heel will stay on the floor and you're reaching out long rather than overextending the knee and lifting the heel off the floor. Inhaling here, inhaling horizontally as well as into the back space and widthwise, and exhaling, pressing the heel down into the floor as you drag the heel in, that same abdominal connection. Breathing in, breathing out. Breathing in, elongating and widening and expanding into the floor. And exhaling, pressing down and coming in. I did about 4 sets with my client. We'll go straight to the other side. You're welcome to push pause and do either 2 more or 4 more, up to 6. Breathing in and breathing out. Breathing in and breathing out. So you can really see how this is a nice preparation for the front of the hip, as well as for the abdominals in the back to help you keep your pelvis and spine organized while getting some release in the front of the hip. Inhale and exhale. So 2 to 4 more on your own time if you wish, or you can just stick with the 2 if that feels like enough for your body. From there, we rolled over onto our sides and pushed with our hands to get up. So if you have diastasis recti, that's also a really great way to safely get up and down from lying down to standing or sitting without increasing the gap between the abdominal wall. After that, she did admit her back was feeling kind of bootsy, to quote our favorite term. So we went and did some all fours kneeling. I like for everyone to be comfortable, so I like to use a towel to pad my shins and my knees a little bit. So from here, placing the hands just slightly in front of the shoulders, we did some cat backs, but we did them from a pelvic tilt into neutral rather than doing the whole spine. So I wanted to get her some stretch in her low back. So you pulled the abdominal wall up and in, felt the pubic bone pulling forward towards the hands slightly to round the low back. Inhaling here into the sides and the backs of the ribs, and exhale to return to neutral. Breathing in and breathing out. Breathing into the sides and the backs of the ribs, and breathing out. 4 to 6 of these. I'll do 2 more. And 1 more time. From here, walk your hands forward to the front of your mat. So your hands are well in front of your shoulders by about maybe 4 inches or more. And we're going to do a variation on a child's pose. So focusing on hinging back through the hips, pushing ourselves back from our hands, and we're using this as a spine stretch and stretching out the lats and the underneath side of the armpits and the arms. Breathing in and out. So really continuing to reach back to the sit bones, really pushing out with the hands, staying active. So you might not come down to where you normally would be in a child's pose. I'm trying also to pull my abdominal wall away from my thighs and pull my ribs away from my thighs as I continue to sit back. You're going to touch, of course, but the idea being that you're really staying active in the front of the body. And exhaling. Using that as a cue for yourself to keep breathing into the sides and the back of the rib cage. Stretching out the intercostals. So breathing into the sides and the backs of the ribs here. And exhale, coming up. We did 4, then we walked our hands to the right. And you're on a slight angle because we're going to go in the oblique diagonal. So the hands will be slightly closer. And you're going to do the same motion of pushing back with the hands, and you're sitting back past your left sit bone. Inhaling and exhaling, coming up. Inhale. I'm externally rotating my upper arm bones to help keep the tops of the shoulders relaxed and to keep the arms rooted into the socket as I'm pushing. Inhaling and exhaling, coming up. We did 4, we're doing 2 now. Walk yourself to the other side. Breathing in, exhale, sitting back. Breathing in, and exhale, coming up. Breathing in, exhale, sitting back. Breathing in, and breathing out. Walking yourself back to the front after 4 sets, or 2 to 4. Symmetrifying, pushing back, so I didn't adjust my arms far enough forward. We'll do 1 more here, and then we're going to stay in a child's pose. Pushing back, keeping the abdominal wall pulling up and in, reaching forward, tops of the shoulders are relaxing, so I'm really reaching from underneath my armpits. Then I'm going to grab my yoga block here. As for my client, she stayed up a little higher. Keeping your hands where they are, you rest your head onto the block, and then you can relax your arms in this extended position. I am resting my torso on my thighs because that is comfortable for me. If that's not comfortable for you, you can place a towel either behind the knee if that's the limiting factor. So that would look like this. Just a little something behind the knee so that when you sit back, your hips are a little bit higher and the knee joint is not as compressed. Or you might feel more comfortable with the towel in front of your hip crease and not touching the block, or maybe bringing the block up very high. Or if you're pregnant, you will separate your knees wide apart to accommodate your baby, and then you'll walk your hands forward. Then you'll push with your hands and slowly come up, whatever variation you're doing. And from there, we'll move on to our next exercise. So our next exercise is a stirring of the femur in the hip socket with a preparation of pelvic gliding forward and back in a kneeling position, and then working into double bent knee lunge supported by 2 surfaces that are about equidistant. So for me today, I'm using this delightful gyrotonic stool. I love it. They are well worth the price. They fit in your home. They're comfortable to sit on. The padding is delightful. And they're a great size. This one is 20 inches and they also come in 16 inches. So I'm using, because I only have one of this size, I'm using just my regular old chair and a yoga block to try and level out the surfaces. If they're not exactly even, that will be fine. You're going to get the chairs on either side of your body so they're approximately equidistant from each other, and you're right in the middle, and you feel comfortable, not too claustrophobic. So you'll bring your right foot forward, and then we're going to stir the femur on the knee that's on the floor. So you're going to stretch the inner part of the groin, tilting to the side, bringing the femur forward, bringing it to this outside, to the gyrotonic stool, and then bring it to the back. So we're circling around, side and forward, and side and back. Really massaging the head of the femur into the hip socket and exploring all the surfaces of the hip socket. Inhaling and exhaling. Do about 4 in each direction. Inhaling and exhaling. And then you reverse, inside and back, and outside and forward. Inside and back, and outside and forward. Breathing in, trying to stay as relaxed as possible through the upper body and the neck and the shoulders. Great. So from here, we can practice gliding the sacrum forward and back. So now we can't touch the front of the sacrum from the inside because there's all the viscera in the way. But use your imagination, feel, you can use your hand here to glide the pelvis forward. You might not go very far. My client found that to be the case. And then pull the abdominals back to keep the pelvis upright and glide the sacrum back. A couple more like that. Exhaling. Exhaling each direction. And one more time. Working in the range that feels good for you. If you're not a kneeler, this will be a challenging exercise for you. Good. From here, we tuck the back toes under. You reach the front knee forward and pull the back heel back. Reach out through the back heel and push down with your arms and lift your hips up, reaching the femur of the kneeling, formerly kneeling, like down and back. So you're getting a nice stretch in the front of the hip. Your legs are active, the hamstrings are active, and you're just hovering yourself straight up. And then come down, using your arms. That's why we have the stools here. So, reaching the knee, the top of the shin forward, pulling the heel back on the front foot, reaching the back heel further back, the femur drops down and out, of course suctioning it up into the socket, active through the glutes on the back leg, active through the hamstrings and the glutes on the front, abdominals, pelvic floor, and then coming back down. If you have issues with your toe joints, this will be a challenge for you. Exhale, pressing back. And come down. And one more. And back down. So really strengthen the leg in that hip extension. We'll change sides. I'm going to change my orientation so you can see that whole sequence from a different angle and get a better idea of what the stirring is like. Okay. So, now we have our left knee forward. So starting with stirring the hip, you're going in, stretching the groin, going forward, side, and back. And I'm moving at a wide range of motion so you can really see what I'm doing. And as you stretch the groin, avoid the temptation to lift up from the outside hip to achieve that. Try to lengthen the groin from inside and forward so this outside of your pelvis can stay relaxed. And then reversing, inside and back, and outside and forward. Inside and back, and outside and forward. Inside and back, and outside and forward. and inside and back, and outside and forward. Then we'll do the sacral gliding, so the pelvic glides forward, and then it glides back. The torso is staying directly above the pelvis. There's no spine extension here. If you want to bring the back of your hand to your lumbar and the fingers on the sacrum, that might be helpful for you to remember not to go into a back bending. One more time. From here, you will tuck the back toes under and reach out to the back heel as you reach the front knee, the top of the shin, forward and pull the front heel into you, pushing down with your arms. So you want to see this glute muscle really plump up, supporting you, and coming back down. Exhale, reach back through the back heel, down and out with the back femur. Reach forward with the top of the front shin and pull in with the front heel and back down. Exhaling. And inhaling. And one more time. And inhale. Great. So, from there, we switched up our setup here and went to the fitness ball, or also known as the Swiss ball, my favorite piece. So hold on while I change my setup. So, my ball likes to roll away. This is Sue, a ball named Sue. So, I love the ball because of its dynamic nature, and it just brings so much fun and creativity to a workout. So what you're going to do with this is we're going to work on quad stretching. You could have done this before our kneeling sequence, or you can do this in lieu of that other lunging sequence. First, my client has very tight quads, so she cannot get her femur behind her while stretching her quads and a perfectly upright pelvis and spine, and that's okay. So don't worry about that if that's you. You might feel a stretch here and that's enough. What you'll do if this is you, you'll press the top of the shin, the top of the ankle down into the ball and hold. 2, 3, 4, and release and try and glide the ball back slightly. If you can start behind you, that's also fine. Really be mindful that you're not allowing your pelvis to tip forward while still keeping your spine upright. Spine extension can be very compressive for the low back. Breathing in, breathing out, pressing down and hold. 2, 3, 4, and release and slide back. You'll do 2 more times. You can push pause now and do that. So, moving on, we will have gentle downward pressure, but focusing on the front leg now, bending the front knee, hinging at the front hip, gently bowing forward, keeping the spine nice and long, and gliding the ball back. Making sure the front knee is staying behind the toes and the center of the knee is in this line between the second and third toe. Pulling the abdominal wall up and in, inhaling here, and exhale, standing up on the front leg, gliding the ball in. Inhaling, exhaling, gliding the ball down and out. Breathing in and exhale. You can also just hold on to a wall. That's a superb thing. This is comparable to Eve's lunge on the reformer, but without the reaching through the foot in the same way. There's nothing really for the foot to press against. But great for standing balance. And then you'll change sides. I'm going to show you from a different angle here. So I'll just turn and hold on to the wall. So the ball, when I begin, is touching my standing calf. Breathing in and breathing out, pushing down. Hold. 2, 3, 4, and release. Glide the ball back. Or just think about doing that. Exhale, press the shin down into the ball and hold. 2, 3, 4, release and glide the ball back. Keep aware of your pelvic and spinal alignment controlled by the abdominal muscles. Breathing in and breathing out, pressing down and hold. 2, 3, 4, and release and glide the ball back. I'll wait while you do one more. Okay, moving on. Bending the front knee, gliding the ball back, bowing forward, hinging at the front hip. Front knee stays just behind the front toe so as not to compress the knee joint. Grounding through the front of the foot and the heel. Knee, center of the knee is between the second and third toe. Breathing in and exhale, pressing gently down to stand up onto the front leg. Exhale to glide, hip hinging in the front. And standing up. 2 more times. Exhale to glide the ball back. Really hinging and bowing forward in that front hip. Coming up. And one more time. And coming back up. Great. Coming off the ball. We're done with our lunge sequence. Lastly, we're going to do my favorite sequence, the ball to the wall. It's one of the balls to the wall exercise. So you want to make sure that your feet are directly underneath your pelvis. So you don't want your outside leg outside of your pelvis. And I'm holding the ball, and then I'll hold the wall for balance. Stand on my outside leg with the inside foot off the floor anyway is fine. Make sure that you're not locked into hyperextension, waist balance between the ball of the foot and the heel, and your hips are level and even to start. That, for some of us, is very difficult. So then you're going to keep pressure into the ball and roll the ball up your wall with your hip and back down. And you're rolling the ball up the wall with the outside hip, similar to what we did on the floor with the stirring of the femur. We're just going in one direction. We're stretching the groin here. We do 2 more times. And one more time. And then you'll change sides. I'll show you from my better angle. So, holding your ball or holding the wall. The ball is on your hip above the greater trochanter but below the top hip bone. You're pushing with the outside hip. Hips are level and even to start, and then rolling the ball up the wall. Rolling the ball with the outside hip rather than simply hiking up the inside hip, although those muscles will also work. I think that was already 4. Coming down. So, thank you, Sue. So, that is my sequence for preparing for lunges, particularly if you're coming out of back pain or you have a pregnancy or diastasis or have other limitations that all of us do as humans. So hopefully you'll feel more comfortable and stronger in the legs to be ready to do standing lunges further down the road. So thanks for joining me, and don't hesitate to reach out with questions, comments, concerns. Link is in the bio.